It is said that there is a saying about work being like a graveyard for life, but the main character thinks otherwise. He explains that the very search for a job is already a grave for life. Makoto Tanaka reports that he encountered 5 A-rank trolls, 4 basilisks, and 3 S-rank tyrant dragons. He says that all these creatures are dangerous. He will miss the last train again. Even if he hurries, it will already be after midnight. And he talks about the last time he was home, explaining that he will now go to the dungeon. He says how he wants to sleep in size. It is said that 10 years ago, mysterious structures appeared, which people called dungeons, and unknown creatures emerged from them. He says that items and weapons created from unknown materials are being studied by seekers, and he too went looking for treasures, realizing that it is easy to lose one's life in such work. He says that with the advent of the dungeons, people with special abilities began to appear, which were tens and hundreds of times stronger than ordinary people, and the man is surprised that there are such monsters there. He says that everything looks interesting and would like to visit the dungeon. She explains that it is dangerous and he will die quickly, and he admits this and remembers that he himself was close to death in the dungeons more than once. He says that a special website, Tube, was created for people to share their exploits, which quickly became popular, and explains that he himself hasn't filmed anything on it, since he lives at work. He doesn't understand how streamers make money at all. He says he doesn't understand and explains that at times like these he begins to feel too old. She says passage is permitted. A woman wishes Makoto Tanaka luck in battle. He explains that he will have to work again, but first shows the device in his hand. The surveillance camera takes off. It is explained that the small filming drone is designed to automatically record videos and send them to the guild. Makoto Tanaka explains that he only uses the guild's video transmission protocol for reports. Then he falls down the stairs and a guard asks if he's okay, to which he replies not to worry. He explains that he was just a little nervous, and the man is surprised and says that he is a cold corpse. Makoto Tanaka explains that he only slept a couple of hours today, hasn't been home for about 2 weeks, wonders when the last time he slept properly was, and wonders why he's doing this at all. He says the guild he works for is a government contractor, but that's where the benefits end. It is explained that even the government does not want to deal with the dungeons, no one controls them, and materials of A and S ranks have been collected. Makoto Tanaka explains that the guild is a lot of hard work, and he is so overloaded that he can't even think about quitting, even though he knows he'll soon die from overwork. He says that today he is going into the dungeon again with his usual lifeless face. Makoto Tanaka says that everything is swimming before his eyes and he needs to finish quickly. He explains that today his goal is the largest dungeon in Tokyo, the Shibuya dungeon, where he will spend another day. He straightens his tie, says that he is getting to work, and tells that at that time he did not yet know that because of today's trip to the dungeon. Makoto Tanaka says he can't understand why the robot isn't responding and explains that he's testing its communication system. He's surprised who it is and says that it says Guild Report in the title, and he ignores the comments, explaining that if his group doesn't have at least 3 people, he'll definitely die, while the other one objects that reinforcements won't even arrive in time. Makoto Tanaka explains that the channel belongs to the guild. The worker is listed on the guild website. There shouldn't have been any broadcasts on the channel. He looked at the guild rules and was surprised, and then says that they need to hurry. Tanaka says he has nothing against it, but a black dog is too black company, and also talks about today's norm and is going to talk about streaming on social media so that people can see this suicide. Makoto Tanaka says he's seen it before and asks if it's on the news, then explains that the dungeon is divided into 3 levels and notes that he's heading to the right part. He explains that this is the very bottom of the dungeon. He came and says that under normal circumstances he would go down slowly and carefully, but now he doesn't have time, so he will have to plunge into the pool headlong, and he says that he will have to work again. He says he wants to drop everything and go home and eat some hot home-cooked food. The robot explains that the guild president won't be watching the video, so no one will notice him. Makoto Tanaka says he's still not getting a raise and hates his dangerous job, then hopes he gets at least 2 hours of sleep tonight. He says that if this is the only way to sleep, then it is better not to work and suggests remembering the guy, and also explains that there are about 10,000 viewers and he makes a copy of the stream, assuring that the video will become popular and shake the top. Makoto Tanaka says that the only contacts on his phone are the guild and a couple of friends, explains that he only receives insults and threats from them, so he ignores them, and says that he doesn't have time to object, since they will still laugh at him tomorrow. He says it's time to go deeper. It is explained that the Shibuya dungeon consists of 4 levels with a deep pit in the center that you can jump into. Makoto Tanaka says Hoba and explains that you can immediately fall to a deep level. He explains that it is too dangerous and few people would dare to take such a step. He regrets sending the norm, and the viewers of the stream shout that he will die and ask what he is doing, surprised by the fall and calling it a suicide stream. Makoto Tanaka is surprised by the number of notifications, but explains that he doesn't think they're important, while simultaneously yelling that he'll just ignore them. He says he forgot about the drone, but it still keeps up with him. Makoto Tanaka explains that he is still getting used to being filmed, but he doesn't think it's necessary. He doubts the company will look at the report, asks how long the task will take, and says he'll have to try streaming and wonder if it gets a response. Makoto Tanaka explains that the Shibuya dungeon worker falls down, looks at the camera and doesn't break a sweat, while others comment that the video is a godsend and ask what's going on. He talks about the beginning of the landing, noticing what is happening. Makoto Tanaka shouts that he is not afraid of the dragon, and the dragon roars and prepares to attack. He says that he hasn't seen monsters eat people in a long time, and explains that it was a red wyvern from the lower level that decided that he was food and flew here. Makoto Tanaka screams as a huge dragon roars and rises into the air. He grabs the hilt of the sword and jumps, preparing to attack the huge dragon with its mouth open. Makoto Tanaka says Hoba while attacking the dragon with a powerful energy beam from his mouth. He delivers a powerful blow to the dragon, tearing its body into pieces. He jumps from a great height, landing on the ground among rocks and stones. Makoto Tanaka lands with force, destroying the ground around him. He shouts that he will destroy the enemy and delivers a powerful blow that destroys the earth and strikes the monster. Makoto Tanaka says it's time to work. He explains that the person who fell from a height is simply stretching his legs, and says that he may not have been swinging the sword, and the camera may have had a low frame rate and also finds some small change. Makoto Tanaka says there are already 50,000 people watching the stream, explains that the video has been shared across all social media, and wonders why the phone keeps ringing and how many more will continue to ring. He says he found something and explains that the situation is getting more interesting as he looks at the group of monsters in front of him. Makoto Tanaka explains that this is the deepest part of the dungeon, where only the strongest monsters live. He says that they are trolls and minotaurs as well as basilisks and death knights, explaining that they are dangerous creatures. Makoto Tanaka explains that the dragon tyrant is a very strong opponent that he doesn't want to fight, but his superiors have given him a quota, so he'll have to. He explains that it is time to work and grips the hilt of his sword tightly. He screams and then attacks several huge creatures with powerful kicks and punches. He says that the troll looks scary and physically well prepared, and at the first meeting he almost overpowered him. Makoto Tanaka says Hoba while jumping on 3 opponents with clubs. He is surprised that GRA is a very durable opponent who has no special abilities, and explains that if you cut off his head, he will not be able to move. Makoto Tanaka explains that of all the monsters in the dungeon's depths, this one is the weakest, while the giant with the club screams. He explains that even an A-rank adventurer can handle the monsters thanks to his equipment, and everyone around him is discussing how the troll killed 3 at once and is surprised by the adventurer's strength, and he wearily says that this is happening again. Makoto Tanaka says his phone is constantly blowing up with notifications these days, distracting him from work. He stands in front of a huge monster and prepares for battle. Makoto Tanaka is surprised when his eye starts spinning. He tells him that it is a basilisk, which he sees for the first time, explains that ogres live on the lower levels, and says that these creatures are rare and dangerous, and also warns that if he does not dodge the basilisk's attack, he will turn to stone. Makoto Tanaka says that his breath turns everything living into stone, and if he hits it, he will be a corpse, and at this time the creature screams and attacks. He says that he had friends who could cure the status or use healing items, but he is lonely and can't make friends. He explains that you need to kill the enemy at the moment of attack, namely to start him up. Makoto Tanaka shouts that he is acting now and attacks the creature, which lets out a piercing scream. He says that he has completed the task and calmly walks past the defeated monster. Makoto Tanaka explains that the monster's most vital part is located under its belly, and if you hit it wrong, rigor mortis will spread throughout the area. While on the stream, over 10 million viewers are already discussing his quick kills of monsters, and he notices that his phone is constantly vibrating. He explains that if he looks there, he will see nothing but abuse directed at him, so he will continue to ignore it. Makoto Tanaka screams as the ground explodes and dust rises around him. He explains that in front of him is an S-rank monster, a tyrant dragon, which stands before him in battle readiness. It is said that the tyrant dragon has parameters several dozen times higher than those of a troll, can melt metals with its flame, and is a very strong opponent. He says the stream will end soon, while others explain that the tyrant dragon is stronger than a common clerk, sadly report the death of the mysterious swordsman and warn to flee, noting that there are more than 50 million of them, which is equal to a third of the country. The image shows a powerful explosion or impact with flying debris and energy, without the presence of characters or speech. Makoto Tanaka explains that the dragon's breath will leave no trace of dust on him, and says that it is unlikely that he will be able to dodge it. He explains that if he doesn't shoot, he won't be able to defend himself, and says that he needs to shoot quickly and accurately. Makoto Tanaka says he doesn't want this situation because he still wants to live. He says he's betting his mother's soul on winning. Another is surprised that he's so focused and actually going to fight, and the third screams to run and that he's going to die. It releases a powerful fireball that collides with its long, sharp tail, causing an explosion and destruction around it. Makoto Tanaka grips the hilt of his sword tightly and delivers a powerful blow, causing a huge explosion of energy and destruction around him. He stands with his sword, watching as the dragon explodes into the ground and prepares to attack. He tiredly says that he is a mega-cool workaholic swordmaster, and people around him are surprised that a simple office worker was able to cut a dragon in half with one blow. Makoto Tanaka says he's not afraid of demons and explains that his sword is capable of destroying them. He explains that after the leader's death, the monsters lost their will to fight. He has already fulfilled his quota and sees no point in continuing the fight, and the guild will take the materials even if he kills them. Makoto Tanaka tells him to leave while he's still kind, and explains that he doesn't want to, after which he watches as the enemies run away. He says he finished earlier than he expected today and explains that he needs to hurry so he can go to the grocery store and buy something. Makoto Tanaka says he'll check his phone first, even though he doesn't want to see anything there. The phone screen shows the time 23:23. The date is the 17th of XX, Tuesday, and there are 9,999 unread notifications. Makoto Tanaka says tap while holding his phone in his hand. He yells that he has 9,999 unread notifications and wonders why the phone rings so often. He says he has already received 9,999 notifications. Makoto Tanaka wonders where the D-tube notifications are coming from and explains that there are new comments on his post. He yells that he doesn't understand how his video was uploaded to another one and explains that all the comments were for him. Makoto Tanaka yells for them to stop and explains that he was setting up a broadcast for the company. He screams that he missed. Makoto Tanaka says he gives C's. He explains that all his actions were broadcast to the entire country, and is surprised that he is not so popular since not many people saw the stream. Makoto Tanaka is surprised that the number has reached 100 million people, and explains that he used a company account with no more than 2,000 people, wondering where the rest came from. He says that there is no million, but here it is already 100 million, and he explains that the situation will not be corrected no matter what he does now. He says that now he will have to write a bunch of written apologies, and the creature says a word expressing regret. The action is reported to take place the day after the broadcast. Makoto Tanaka shouts that he's the only one being discussed and shows a news story on his phone about a workaholic who destroyed a tyrant dragon with one blow. He says he's interested in what other media outlets are writing, but on the screen they show a video with a caption about a very strong person that no one knew about before. Tachibana Keys wants to know the person's contact information. Sen offers to invite him to the guild and asks how to contact him, and Kabajin explains that with his skills he can find a good place to work, while Makoto Tanaka covers his face with his hand and throws his phone on the sofa. He explains that he doesn't understand anything because of work and needs the opinions of strong people on the internet, and he says that he is probably the only madman who dives into deep levels alone. Makoto Tanaka explains that he's been going down alone lately and knows little about the levels of other adventurers. He says that he started descending immediately after the dungeons appeared in the world. He thought that he was strong enough, but he didn't expect that everything would turn out like this. Makoto Tanaka explains that because of his plain appearance as an ordinary salaryman and his suit, he looks like an ordinary salaryman, and the bags under his eyes do not give him away as a seeker. He says that the hero looks more like a clerk than a seeker and explains that people created a news story because of this. He screams when the phone starts ringing. Makoto Tanaka yells that he's disconnected from D-Tube and that notifications shouldn't be coming through, then slams into the wall and falls to the floor. He says what to do now and explains that he hasn't seen Adachi for a long time, who is calling, and he was too busy and forgot about him. He explains that the call is related to yesterday's events, but honestly says that he doesn't want to talk about it. Makoto Tanaka says hello. He explains that there is no one to consult with except him, and someone loudly greets Tanaka. He says he saw everything and nearly died laughing, and then asks how the other person is feeling. He explains that he is deviating and asks what exactly. Makoto Tanaka says he agrees and asks for a minute while stretching and then puts his phone on the table. He silently puts on his jacket. Makoto Tanaka yells that he's always working, and a man asks what he's doing. He says he wants to disconnect, and he asks for forgiveness, promising not to joke or disconnect anymore. He apologizes and promises not to bully him anymore, asking him not to pass out, and Makoto Tanaka says that he is unbearable. He says that he needs Adachi's advice now and it's not profitable to disconnect, and he explains that Adachi is a good conversationalist, has known many people for a long time and is well-versed in social networks. He says he watched the video and thinks the other guy is as strong as ever and asks if he's gotten any stronger. Makoto Tanaka says that they need to figure out what he wants first, and the other explains that he wants to delete all the videos that are being shared, after which Makoto Tanaka laughs and calls it unrealistic. He explains that the number of videos from the stream reaches thousands and they have already spread abroad. Makoto Tanaka explains that there is a real samurai in Japan and he checked the translation into 5 languages, and then says that during the broadcast there were comments from foreign users and they have to accept this outcome. He says that the video deletion is changing and asks for advice on how to minimize the situation, and the other one is surprised at what he is saying. Makoto Tanaka says he's just an office worker, not a blogger or streamer, and even if he becomes famous, his boss will make caustic remarks, and he wonders why he's trying to turn down such an opportunity, complaining of a stomach ache due to stress. He says that the slave mentality of an office worker is firmly rooted in him, and asks if he understands this. Makoto Tanaka tells him to quit the company, and he is surprised and asks what. He says that he saw in the video severe bags under the interlocutor's eyes and explains that the court is probably still using him as a forced laborer, to which the interlocutor replies that he will not deny it. Makoto Tanaka says that this is the president of the guild he works for. He says that he, Yadchi, and Suda studied together and often played, and he explains that he can't quit because of his debt to Suda, and they remind him that it's because of a loan taken out due to his parents' illness. Makoto Tanaka explains that he has already paid back the money and worked off the debt, so it's time to live for himself. He is surprised, asking if it is for himself, and then says that he was so busy that he did not even think about such things. Makoto Tanaka says he was told he wouldn't find a job if he quit and explains he can live for himself, while another man explains his boss has become downright mean and tells him not to take his words to heart, adding that there are many guilds that would like to get him. He explains that it is possible to become a freelancer without belonging to a company, but a license is required to exchange currency, and items obtained in the dungeon are first exchanged for a special currency called G, and then for yen. Makoto Tanaka explains that companies are typically owned by organizations rather than individuals, and talks about the complex economic system without which it would easily collapse, as well as the high value of items obtained from dungeons. It is explained that not only Japan but also most other countries use similar systems. Makoto Tanaka says he's not suggesting becoming a freelancer, but rather a dungeon streamer, and he confirms this. She explains that the dungeon streamer broadcasts dungeon crawls, and the man explains that this is a way to make money without a currency exchange license. Makoto Tanaka says that famous streamers make good money, but he's not sure he can handle it and asks people not to go out of their way. He says he will support him with all his might if he decides to do so. Makoto Tanaka explains that Adachi works for a company that supports adventurers, is well-versed in dungeon streaming and will definitely help, and he is counting on him, noting that he has been a reliable guy since childhood. He says he agrees. Makoto Tanaka explains that he can't imagine quitting his job and says that the word unemployed is too hard for someone his age, even though he doesn't want to say it. He says that he admired his interlocutor. He is surprised that it is him and says that he also dreamed of becoming a seeker, thought about fighting in dungeons, but after seeing how Makoto Tanaka fights, he decided not to go there. He says that he got a job supporting seekers in order to someday support one specific person. He asks if he knows this person, and the other explains that he was a bit slow since childhood. Makoto Tanaka says that if his current job is hard, he should quit it and maybe hire someone to serve tea at his company, and then explains that the offer seems tempting and he gets completely cross-eyed. He says that he can defeat even a tyrant dragon and will not lose to some judge, and then confirms this. Makoto Tanaka says he'll be in touch and leaves the room. He looks at his watch, which shows 7:58 a.m., and then quickly gets up and starts walking. Makoto Tanaka explains his situation as a man in a suit enters the room and loudly calls out to Tanaka. He shouts that he is ready, and the man on the left and the man on the right remain silent. Makoto Tanaka says he's going to quit while three men listen. The man screams that he understands what he has done, and he explains that his stomach is starting to hurt and his spirit is weakened more than he thought. Makoto Tanaka says that talking to Adachi gave him perspective and size. He says that without him, he's already given up, and another man explains that because of his broadcast, the company's reputation has fallen through the floor and demands how he's going to answer for it. Makoto Tanaka says that the rest of the staff will arrive soon and then they will deal with him. He tells you to be prepared, but he explains that everything is as usual and explains that the managerial skills of the interlocutor are not worth a damn. Makoto Tanaka explains that his talent for running a black company is insane, and because of this, his body and soul are completely depressed. He explains that he is obliged, but warns about the penalties for being late, and the man agrees. Makoto Tanaka says that he wants to live for himself and that he doesn't need to be afraid, and the other man explains that the boss can't be late and he says this for their own good, after which the two men answer that there is. He says that the boss always thinks about the good, but in fact he enjoys the notes and loves to mock those who cannot fight back, and he explains that it is not easy to be a boss. Makoto Tanaka explains that before meeting him, he gets a stomach ache and is surprised that he received a new message at an inopportune moment. Then he coughs and the other man looks at him questioningly. He says that if you are afraid of the court, you need to imagine that it will instantly destroy you. Then the fear will disappear. Makoto Tanaka apologizes, and the other man explains that he doesn't believe he'll be forgiven for feeling unwell, and says that's it. He says he doesn't think so and explains that he used to be a seeker and is stronger than an ordinary person. He says that he hasn't gone down into the dungeon for a long time, that he is much stronger than the other, and explains that the judge's movements are full of lies, after which he agrees with this. Makoto Tanaka says it will take seconds to kill, and the other man is surprised and asks what's going on. The man says that he used to be afraid of being fired from the company, but now he sees that worse things are ahead and says that he is no longer afraid of anything, not even being fired, and he will cope. The group apologizes for being late. The man says that those who are late will have their pay cut, and then turns to Makoto Tanaka and asks if he is ready. He tells him to tell what he did so that the rest of the staff can understand. Makoto Tanaka explains that he first forces the employee to explain himself to instill a sense of guilt, and then interrupts him, silences him, and takes over the conversation. He explains that the employee is already giving up and can't say anything, demands to speak faster and calls him shameless. And he says that if this had happened earlier, he would have made the same face and begins to speak. Makoto Tanaka explains that he accidentally misconfigured the transformer. He says he leaked information about his work to the outside world, admits his guilt, and regrets it. Makoto Tanaka explains that he already has a way in his head to break the other man's spirit, and the other man says that what he did was terribly wrong. He explains that the Black Dog Guild is getting a bad rap on the internet right now and explains that it's entirely his responsibility and he has nothing to do with it, to which the other man yells that he refuses to compensate and wonders who he thinks he is. Makoto Tanaka explains that the guild is black in every sense, and if something they didn't do were to spread, it would be his fault, and the other man yells at him to repeat it again. He explains that it was only what they do that was spread, and that he was the one who brought the situation about, and then shouts that their guild cannot be a black company. A man shouts that he pays minimum wage and gives 1 day off a month, while another explains that he would like to know how many people consider the guild decent. He says that the salary is what he pays himself, and also explains that the number of days off is lower than what is stipulated by the labor law for dungeon hunters. Makoto Tanaka says that no one notices, and the man shouts that he is doing government work and is the government, after which Makoto Tanaka explains that there is nothing to be done about it. He explains that the guild is completely black and already rotten to the core. He explains that he has already extracted enough information and it is time to lay his cards on the table, and the rest of the employees are in shock and, in his opinion, will soon quit. He regrets the court. Makoto Tanaka says that they have been together for so long, but the other man remains silent. He is surprised and he says what is happening. He yells that he doesn't understand what it means, and the text explains that the conversation is getting heated and describes the dark side of Japan and the need to call the police. He says he hasn't been to such a wild exposé party in a long time, and says it's a quick firing on live TV, and also greets the boss and notes that now the boss has nowhere to go, understanding the employees and thinking about the possibility of quitting. Makoto Tanaka says modern drones are high-tech and have stealth modes. He explains that this allowed him to broadcast what was happening unnoticed, and then wonders how this is possible. Makoto Tanaka explains that the guild's channel has seen a surge in subscribers thanks to an accidental leak, and says it's time to pay the bills. He talks about eating a bowl of popcorn, while others comment on him as an internet star, discuss sending a message to the labor inspectorate, and wonder if there will be an interesting stream today. Makoto Tanaka says there are quite a lot of viewers and social media is currently exploding. He explains that the broadcast started 27 minutes ago. He says that Suda can no longer escape and doubts that he will be able to silence everyone, despite the many witnesses, and Suda screams and growls. Makoto Tanaka explains that he usually uses fear to subjugate people, and if it comes to that, he has no trump cards left. He explains that he has no plan to get out of the situation, and the man shouts that he wants revenge for the exploitation and does not believe that he will do such a thing. Makoto Tanaka tells Salgu that if he says that this didn't happen, then because of him he wasted a lot of precious time, but that's in the past. He says that what matters is what happens next, and explains that from now on he will live for himself. First he needs to quit the company, and what to do next he hasn't decided yet. He says he will live as a freelancer or find another job and laughs. Makoto Tanaka yells that he doesn't believe that the freelancer will find another job and calls him a worthless piece of trash. And he explains that as long as he keeps him on a leash, he won't be able to work anywhere else. He shouts that this concerns them too, and he explains that he understands his point of view and cannot believe that he worked under him for so long. He shouts that then why not ask if he can get a job somewhere else. Makoto Tanaka asks if he will find a job after leaving, and various guilds say they will be glad to have him and offer better conditions. He says that if you join the Azure Snakes, they will allow you to deal with this trash. Makoto Tanaka says that there are famous guilds that are very difficult to get into, and he confirms this. He explains that he never thought anyone needed him and can't hold back his tears, and messages with job offers and support confirm that the world is not without good people. Makoto Tanaka says the answer is here and explains that the spell is no longer effective, causing the other man to scream in anger. He shouts that he paid for his parents' treatment and did everything for him, but he explains that he has already repaid the debt and accuses him of betrayal. Makoto Tanaka explains that he thought they would succeed together, and the man leaves while the three watch. He shouts to shut up, and he reacts to it with surprise. He screams for Tanaka's attention. Makoto Tanaka is surprised that they are serious, and the three men in suits tell him with surprise and fear that it is true. He silently looks at the man with the sword, who shouts that he is an ungrateful bastard. Makoto Tanaka says that this knife is a cursed weapon from the dungeons, and another man explains that outside the dungeon, its presence violates the law governing the labyrinths and orders death. He screams his name, and three men in suits react with horror to the evil face with a bulging eye. Makoto Tanaka says he's slow, and the knife-wielding attacker screams and lunges at him. He explains that the monster's movements are much more sophisticated than those of the Fukaka monsters, and that he used to be stronger, but has now completely sunk. He screams that his arm is injured, showing the damage, and a man in a suit fights with an opponent. He screams in pain, and Makoto Tanaka explains that it's over. He says that now he too will know what pain is. Makoto Tanaka says he can't afford to relax, while another man yells that he's tired. He grabs the other man by the hand, who is surprised and tries to say something. Makoto Tanaka screams that he can't afford to lose and destroys tables, while another man stands opposite and says that he is not going to give in. He screams as he falls through the ceiling, and 3 men look on in amazement. Makoto Tanaka says he feels better after someone broke his glass and fell down. He says he held back so the other one wouldn't die and hopes it will teach him something. Makoto Tanaka explains that even a rotten but former seeker is still strong and his spirit is not broken. And the other man says that he will not forgive Tanaka and wonders how he dared. He screams that he has been disgraced, and the voiceover explains that his pride does not allow him to admit defeat. Makoto Tanaka explains that if he hits him again, he could die, and the other man says that's a problem and yells at them to get going. He says to kill the criminal who raised his hand against him, and 2 men nearby listen intently. A man shouts that the employees are completely useless, another demands that he stop or he will cut his salary, and Makoto Tanaka explains that, if he is not mistaken, this is the same guy. He says that he never went underground with his interlocutor, and explains that he will now be left without a salary and will no longer be able to work in this industry. Makoto Tanaka says he doesn't want that and confirms it before he lowers his head and leaves, leaving the man standing at the door. He says that he will just hold him without causing pain, and the other man explains that it is fine and agrees, after which he thanks. Makoto Tanaka explains that trying to grab his leg and hold it is a really bad way to immobilize an opponent, but the movements are too linear and slow, after which he deftly intercepts the opponent's arm. He lands hard on the floor, causing a strong impact. Makoto Tanaka screams, hitting his face on the table, and he silently looks at him. He explains that he can't help and then supports the crying girl by hugging her. Makoto Tanaka explains that it's all over for him and the guild, and another man shouts that the useless won't get away with just a pay cut and orders them to surrender, since everything is now being broadcast. He shouts that the guild grew thanks to him and he will not allow everything to be destroyed, and the man orders Goda to grab him, after which he takes a step forward. Makoto Tanaka explains that the difference between a young employee and him is in their years. He reveals that Goda is an experienced A-rank adventurer whom he knows well from their dungeon explorations together, and explains that he won't be easily defeated, after which the other man orders Goda to kill him. Makoto Tanaka says he needs to deal with it, but he wonders how. He says that he has long thought that Tanaka is too big for such a guild and that he should fight in a larger arena, and the other man congratulates him on his departure. Makoto Tanaka says thank you, and the man is surprised that when they explored dungeons together, Makoto Tanaka was silent and did not like him. He explains that he can't carry out the president's order because Tanaka-san taught him the basics of being a seeker and is an important mentor, and the other man shouts that he sees a tail in front of the trash. Makoto Tanaka says that even if he attacks seriously, it will only result in his defeat, and the man behind him is surprised and curses. He explains that he is confident of a good fight with the president, who says he understands the situation, and the other man asks Tanaka to detain the president and leave. Makoto Tanaka thanks a man for his help. He says that he will finally say goodbye to this guild and squeezes the door handle while the other man screams and makes sounds. Makoto Tanaka opens the door abruptly and he steps back in reaction to the sudden action. He says that the Dungeon Association's audit department has responded to the call and orders everyone to remain in place. He shouts that this is the audit department and laughs. Makoto Tanaka explains that the wind blew the other way, while another man shouts for officials to apprehend the criminal who raised his hand against him. He explains that the Dungeon Association's audit department is a government organization, and says that with all the fuss, reports from viewers of the broadcast have arrived, so they need to carry out their duties faster. He explains that he can't remove the handcuffs because they are too tight. A man says not to resist, and another is surprised. He shouts that the criminal is there. Makoto Tanaka explains that they were detained for violating the law on the labor of seekers and the special law on awakened people, and the robot explains that it is impossible to justify himself because of the live broadcast, and the man, in a panic, denies that everything is so. He explains that previous mistreatment of employees has not gone unnoticed, and the other man says that his reign is now over. A woman demands that Tanaka be arrested along with her for using force against a law-abiding citizen. Makoto Tanaka looks at her silently, and he is surprised by her words. She explains that according to a special law of the awakened, using powers outside the dungeons is forbidden without permission, especially against ordinary people, and he confirms this. Makoto Tanaka explains that awakened beings are those who, after the appearance of the dungeons, have acquired special powers that depend on individual characteristics and arise when magical essence from the dungeons enters the body. He explains that the awakened power can be used outside the dungeons, but its use is restricted by Law Number 12, and he says that the ingrate must be arrested and warns not to be mistaken, while the other man screams that he is a victim. She explains that his actions fall under the category of self-defense, and if they weren't awakened, it could be considered excessive self-defense, but in this case, they are both awakened. Makoto Tanaka explains that the enemy is disproportionately at fault because they attacked first and used weapons, and he explains that he cannot be arrested under the special law for awakened people. And the other man says that Suda was also a seeker and awakened person. He says that it is good that Suda was awakened, and at the same time explains that nevertheless. The woman explains to Makoto Tanaka that they will also have to go to the office, and he says that it is a big hassle and she is surprised. He says that her face seems familiar to him and is surprised that she is the one. She says she finally recognizes Amatsuki. He explains he hasn't seen her in a while and is impressed by how she has grown. And another man yells that Amatsuki Kanade is where. He explains that the first cleanup department deals with awakened violators, since ordinary people will not be able to catch or detain them, and wonders why such a big shot like her came. Makoto Tanaka says he did nothing wrong, then explains that he's done enough and is surprised that Amatsuki came for a small fry like Suda. He explains that the first cleansing unit is the Ministry's internal elite unit for combating monsters, whose employees, high-level awakened ones, act when monsters appear and help arrest criminals, and that she, Amatsuki Kanade, is the head of this unit. He explains that Amatsuki is a strong, intelligent, and incredibly beautiful rising star of the Ministry of Monster Control. Makoto Tanaka explains that although she is younger, she is already in charge of the first cleanup unit, which shows her outstanding abilities. He explains that they used to explore dungeons together and got along well, but now he explains that there's a gap between them, and she says that there's no deeper meaning to his presence here. Makoto Tanaka explains that he just had some free time, and he is surprised that Amatsuki must be so busy. He says she might have come to meet someone, but she turns around abruptly, noticing him. He is surprised, asking if she doesn't like him. Makoto Tanaka orders two men to take the judge away. One of the men confirms, and the other shouts that he is the guild president and demands that they stop. He yells at Tanaka, warning him that he shouldn't think he can get away with this. Makoto Tanaka shouts that he will definitely take revenge for the humiliation, warns not to resist, otherwise they will intensify measures, and the man explains that he pays taxes and the salary is his money, and asks to quickly let him go. Makoto says that he held out until the end and the story with the dismissal is over. She explains that they need to talk and this is voluntary accompaniment, and he suggests postponing the conversation. Makoto Tanaka explains that he hasn't slept for weeks and is already at his limit, and she is surprised. She is surprised and notices something flying sharply towards her. Makoto Tanaka explains that if it were an unfamiliar official, he would go, but with Amatsuki, it's possible to ponangle a little. He promises to talk and gives contacts, then says goodbye. She shouts that she came specifically to meet him, and Makoto Tanaka asks if she said anything. He says it must have seemed that way. She says that Amatsuki is now far away from her and explains that they will probably never explore dungeons together again like they used to. Makoto Tanaka is standing with a backpack, and a man with a short haircut notices him and pays attention. He tells them not to shout so loudly that they won't be noticed, and the man explains that he saw Tanaka's broadcast and jokes that it's hard to be popular. Makoto Tanaka says he's going home, and the other man apologizes and explains he's joking. He says that he always says 3 words more than necessary, and the interlocutor explains that when he is with him, he wants to talk a lot and offers to order whatever he wants in honor of his dismissal. Makoto Tanaka explains that he suddenly received a message inviting him to celebrate his dismissal and offers to go, while another man asks if they are ready to order and tells them not to be shy. He's talking about a large order with a cheeseburger, fries, steak, rice, curry, pasta, drinks, and pancakes. He shouts that that's all for now and is surprised that he doesn't understand. Explains that he hasn't eaten properly for a long time and considers the spending excessive. And Makoto Tanaka says that he has a serious wife and let her punish him for such spending. He explains that he acts as a seeker and eats a lot because of the activity, and the other man says that this is understandable. Makoto Tanaka says that the circles under his eyes have become smaller and he looks healthier, and he says that when he was an office worker, his face was like that of a dead person, but today in the mirror it looked a little more alive and he would like to return to the face of a living person. He asks Adachi if there's anything he needs to discuss, and Adachi suggests they discuss it while they wait for food, and says he did it in between work. Makoto Tanaka says this is the path to becoming a popular streamer. He reads documents about account management and viewer acquisition methods, and then is surprised that he supposedly knows nothing about streaming. Makoto Tanaka says that didn't happen here. He promises to make Adachi a world-class streamer and gives him something important. Makoto Tanaka explains that this is an outdated model from the Black Dog Guild, but it is still quite functional, so he recommends using it for now. He says that he is preparing something else, and the other man is surprised that he even prepared a drone and asks to wait a little. Makoto Tanaka shows the phone and says that here. He explains that you can't stream immediately after creating an account. He created it yesterday, and the man advises him to start streaming tomorrow and promises to send the ID and password for the account later. Makoto Tanaka says he's really very capable and wishes him bon appetit. He says that he won't be able to thank him properly and hasn't sunk so low as to parasitize on the unemployed, and also explains that it's a joy for him to do so much for him. Makoto Tanaka explains that he will be monitoring your progress and asks you to give it your all. He thanks you and promises to use it with gratitude. He says that you can buy drinks from this machine, and he explains that there is always a lot of choice and everything works properly. Makoto Tanaka says they're discussing his streaming career and asks if he'd like to join another guild since he saw offers during his stream. He says that he is currently thinking about working as a freelancer and wants to test his abilities, and also explains that he even likes this kind of support in the comments. He says it's already so late, and the other one explains that it's okay then. Makoto Tanaka explains that he needs to go to the association's administrative office to explain himself and says goodbye, and the man asks to say hello to Kanade and says that it's time for him to go too. He says he hasn't seen her on broadcasts for a long time, but she has become a real beauty and used to be cute, and there was a real buzz in the comments. Makoto Tanaka explains that she is now called the Ice Sword Princess and laughed at the comments about wanting to be defeated by her. Then explains that she has grown into a decent person and is probably disappointed to see him now. He explains that Amatsuki won't be able to attend the interrogation and says it's for the best, while the other explains that she couldn't forget Makoto that easily and probably has feelings for him. Makoto Tanaka says he was useless before, but now he will try to earn her trust again, and the other man says, He explains that there are a lot of challenges ahead in Canada. He tells you to forget about it, and then says that he will read something and start streaming from tomorrow. Makoto Tanaka says he'll be watching while he works and wishes him luck, and the other man thanks him. He says it's hot, but now he can go to bed and wake up whenever he wants and explains how happy he is. Makoto Tanaka says he'll do his best today and climbs the stairs out of the Nishi Shinjuku dungeon. He says that no matter how many times he's been here, it's still impressive, and explains that this is a Nishi Shinjuku dungeon that appeared in a giant crack in the ground, where only the middle levels have been explored so far. Makoto Tanaka explains that he plans to limit himself to the middle levels, as interest in the deep ones can quickly fade, and says that the drone is ready and there is little left. He tells the drone to sync with his smartphone and link his DTube account, then explains that the ads will be on social media. Makoto Tanaka says everyone should still be at work and notices a rapid increase in reposts and likes on the post about the first broadcast. He is surprised that he already has 1,000 subscribers and says that he is starting to get nervous because of the large number of people watching him. Makoto Tanaka explains that if he thinks about it, It was thanks to them that he was able to quit his job at the company and is about to cry. He says he has to give it his all if he wants to repay them and takes a deep breath. Makoto Tanaka says good afternoon to everyone and thanks them for coming to the first stream. And at the bottom he explains that the atmosphere at DTube is calmer and easier to work there than in a company. He says he forgot to turn on the chat projection, asks the audience to wait and notes that from the Dachi's point of view it's still too early. Makoto Tanaka says that he no longer needs to look at messages on his smartphone, thanks for the wait and the large number of messages, and explains that he would like to go down to the middle floor. He explains that he had breakfast today and thanks for his concern, and then says that next time they can go deeper. Makoto Tanaka says that replying to messages is quite difficult. He has developed a respect for people who do it every day, and explains that he is already near his destination so he will get straight to the point. He says his broadcasts were shared on social media, and he is currently unemployed. Makoto Tanaka explains that today they will be going to a dungeon in the western cliff of Shinjuku, where there are many cliffs, and the Dungeon Management Bureau decided to build an elevator to the entrance so that people can get there without getting hurt. He says that this isn't his first time in the dungeon, but this is the first time he's seen something like this, and explains that he needs to think about what to do with the broadcast and he notices a queue. Makoto Tanaka says the very first dungeon run has been cancelled. He explains that no one is immune to this, and also says that he knew the stream was a money-making scheme, and regrets having to unsubscribe. He says the situation is bad and something needs to be done. He explains that he studied all the materials but wasn't prepared for this, and reflects on the collapse of his career due to the staging of the stream. Makoto Tanaka says that we need to correct the situation and ask other people, and he says that he only recently started communicating with strangers, but usually anyone is capable of this. He asks permission to ask a question, and he is surprised and says that he is a workaholic and a sword master. He's surprised that it's the same one, and she says that in reality he's even cooler, and he explains that this is serious. Makoto Tanaka is surprised that everyone is looking at him and his belly, while others say that he has many fans among the adventurers. He is invited to the guild and he is already so popular. He asks why there is such a queue and what is the reason for the gathering of people. And another man explains that they also came to the Western Rock and is glad that they will be able to go down together. He explains that the elevator to the dungeon is broken. Several groups were able to go down in the morning, but it broke down somewhere halfway, and apologizes for the excitement. Makoto Tanaka explains that the elevator is broken and the trapped people can't be rescued. And he speculates that waiting for the elevator to be repaired on stream is pointless and will leave viewers disappointed. He's surprised that the discussion has already started, explains that he saw a hint about solving the problems during the stream, and explains that he saved it in the gallery. One says there are 18 people inside, while the other explains that their safety cannot yet be confirmed. He says he asks the ladies for forgiveness. Makoto Tanaka says he's going to go down into the dungeon, and she's surprised that the sword master is a workaholic, says she watched his entire stream and calls him a coward, after which he explains that even the dungeon workers know about him and finds it unusual. He asks for permission and she explains that it's her turn now. Makoto Tanaka says that everything is fine and asks for permission, and she agrees, explaining that to enter the dungeon you need to apply and get permission from the workers, and if you belong to a guild, the guild will do it for you. He explains that he is alone and has to do everything himself, then says a big thank you, receiving permission. Makoto Tanaka says he'll listen to Adachi's advice and do everything the way he always did, but he's afraid of heights and feels like he's already dead. He is surprised to notice him standing behind with a sword on his back. He explains that the old man wants to do something incomprehensible. She says that she thought he was going home, and the other explains that this is clearly not the direction home. He shouts that it is him, and the others are surprised. He screams that he is going to die, and others are surprised and ask if he is serious. Makoto Tanaka says that in their business you need to be able to stand on your own 2 feet, and explains that the chat seems to come to life, after which it falls to the ground. He warns those who are afraid of heights to be careful, but he notes that they still enjoyed it and that it was the right decision. Makoto Tanaka says he'll slow down soon. He screams op as he grabs the hilt of the sword and jumps down, breaking a wooden bucket. Makoto Tanaka jumps, destroying the cliff beneath him. He deflects the attack with his foot, holds the engraved katana, and lands powerfully, shattering the floor. Makoto Tanaka says everything is fine and pats his chest. He suggests starting to explore the dungeon, says that he thought he would die, although he was just looking, and explains that an ordinary awakened one definitely can't do this, and he's dizzy. Makoto Tanaka hopes to show something interesting, and he and others discuss corporate mentality, rude streamers, and are amazed at the height of the jump. He quickly climbs the stairs. Makoto Tanaka walks down the stairs into a dark passage, holding his sword behind his back. He explains that most dungeons go underground, and inside there are ruins and monsters with different characteristics. It is explained that monsters live only in dungeons, but sometimes they come out. Makoto Tanaka explains that the Bureau usually gathers people for a raid to get rid of all the monsters and tells them to move on. Goblins typically use knives and other simple weapons. Makoto Tanaka explains that there are only 5 of them, their intelligence and physical abilities are low, and the Research Association has assigned them the lowest danger rank of D. He says to move on while he fights the monsters. Makoto Tanaka says that looking at goblins is not interesting and explains that they will move to the middle floor. He says he's a B rank seeker, but he didn't see anything and lost confidence, while others explain that the camera didn't have time to film, the technology failed, and they have a cheater here. Makoto Tanaka says he's glad you liked it, but explains that the simple goblins are nothing interesting, and is surprised that the chat came alive even though he killed the simple goblins. He explains that he is sure that he will like the rest more, and he is surprised that he missed something and says that his usual battles are no longer normal and his voice screams, "Where else?" Makoto Tanaka says the boss is simply ignoring the fact that he cut down the goblins with one blow, and then warns about monsters behind him. He says that they are vile bastards and at the same time attacks the creature with tails. He explains that the dungeon rats are as strong as goblins, but faster, and explains that their blood poisoned him, making it difficult to overcome. Makoto Tanaka says viewers share his opinion, and the list includes options with giants and a hatred of rats for their smelliness and disgust. He says he has an effective way to kill rats without leaving a bad smell, and he and others are preparing for action despite doubts. Makoto Tanaka prepares his attack with concentration, then delivers a powerful sword strike to the 2 giant rats, striking them with force. He explains that the flying blade technique is a simple shock wave that exceeds the speed of sound, and explains that this way there will be no unpleasant smell. Makoto Tanaka says he's curious about the comments and suggests that many people didn't know about this method, hoping it would be useful, while another man is surprised that he didn't expect such a reaction and explains that ordinary people can't do this. He says that nothing is working out and wonders if maybe this isn't for him after all. Makoto Tanaka explains that they need to move to the middle floor, while he explains that although he was a little worried, he needs to continue, and a message with support comes on his phone. He says that since he has time, he will answer questions, and suggests asking if you are interested in anything. Makoto Tanaka explains that the volcano is erupting and reveals that this event was predicted. He explains that the monster cannot escape from the trap and he is preparing for the final blow to destroy it. Makoto Tanaka explains that there is a passage in the cave and he is going to go inside. He explains that further on is the middle level, the monsters there are more dangerous and you need to be careful, and the upper and middle levels are practically the same except that the walls and floor are a little darker. Makoto Tanaka explains how else you can notice differences in the amount of magical essence. He explains that people can sense a magical essence. The deeper the dungeon, the darker it becomes, and warns that going too deep can lead to poisoning, so you need to descend gradually. Makoto Tanaka explains that the magical essence becomes denser on the middle level and warns that one must be careful when descending here, otherwise one might never wake up again. He explains that he really did fly head first, and his interlocutors say that he has not convinced them and that he is completely resistant, and he is becoming increasingly frightening. Makoto Tanaka explains that he has resistance to changes in magical essence and a sharp fall to the depths will be safe, but an ordinary person will explode, so there is no point in repeating after him, and he becomes interested in the comments. He stands silently in the cave, looking around. He says that there are no monsters nearby and he will be able to answer, explains that the longer you are in the dungeon, the more the body gets used to the magical essence, and says that he also has 350 hours of overtime per month for 5 years. Makoto Tanaka says that he spent so much time in the dungeon that the local atmosphere became his home, and he explains that he became a slave of the corporation and received immunity, after which he laughs ironically, and the voice in his head is indignant that he spent his whole life there and feels bad about his story. He says that life was disgusting and he doesn't want to go back to it, and then explains that in the dungeon they can find things that will make them more resilient and gives an example. Makoto Tanaka explains that the glowing fly agaric mushroom can only be found at mid-levels. There is a magical essence inside the mushroom, and if you eat it, you can slightly increase your resistance to magical essence. He wishes bon appetit, he eats, and another man explains that he is playing a game, and a third man talks about what is happening on the screen. Makoto Tanaka explains that the mushroom is a bit hard, but the taste is good, warns about possible poisoning if eaten in large quantities and advises against eating too much, and he notices that the chat has become lively. He explains that because of work he didn't have time to eat and ate everything in sight in the dungeon, where he first fainted and suffered from pain and even died. Makoto Tanaka says that by the third year he didn't care what he ate, but he had to eat everything, even raw. He says that he is amazed at how easily people adapt to any conditions. Makoto Tanaka says that the secret of the enemy's power is terrible. He will not do this because by imitating he will die, and one day going down to the lower level he felt sick, and the other says that it is great and asks if there is something very tasty. He says you can order food. Makoto Tanaka says it's all sad and advises buying something tasty for himself, and then is surprised. He explains that the super chat feature allows you to send messages to the streamer, but to use it you need to verify your identity and have more than 10,000 subscribers. Makoto Tanaka says the message is convenient to read. He didn't think anyone would use the super chat, thanks the person who sent it, and promises to film something tasty, explaining that the super chat function was made available thanks to viewers. He says a big thank you to everyone and then hears a beeping sound. Makoto Tanaka talks about finally being able to send money towards his retirement. His fans explain that they eagerly await each stream and promise to support him, and he shows how the sticky mask stretches. He is surprised that he has something in his eye, explains it and says that his efforts have finally paid off. Makoto Tanaka marvels at the kindness of people, explains that tear ducts weaken with age, and explains that he must see things through to the end despite his emotions. He thanks everyone and explains that he will live up to their expectations by showing the most interesting things. Makoto Tanaka asks people to come to his streams, and viewers thank him, advising him not to work himself to the point of exhaustion, to leave the past behind, and to make money from streaming. He says that they are moving forward and if there are any questions, then you can ask. Makoto Tanaka says it's a bit quiet today and explains that he'd like the monster to show itself. He says that he would like to please everyone, but to do this he needs to defeat someone strong. Makoto Tanaka says they mentioned several groups before the elevator malfunctioned, discussing image degradation and speed, and he recommends taking motion sickness medication. He says that he needs to take some medicine that he will feel better right away, and that he will also take it. Makoto Tanaka says that he is not the type to risk everything to save another, but if there is a chance, he should try, and notes that all the monsters seem to be enraged. He says he doesn't know how to express this feeling and explains that there is a tense atmosphere inside the dungeon. Makoto Tanaka says that at a time like this there is a chance that something could go wrong and he should be careful. Then he sees monsters approaching and asks if he is alone, and the girl breathes heavily, preparing for battle. He stands at the entrance to the cave, and the woman shouts that she is going, and raises a sword that destroys the earth. She screams to hell and delivers a powerful blow, destroying the floor, and then breathes heavily, clutching the weapon. Makoto Tanaka says that it is dangerous to go down alone because she is still very young, and explains that being alone on the middle level and below is suicide, and he worked for a company. He explains that he was forced to go down alone, and the other man says that he didn't do it because he liked it. He explains that the initial floors are easy, but further on it is too dangerous for a solo player due to the many traps and monsters, and it is difficult to move forward without a group because the dungeon is a game without second chances. Makoto Tanaka explains that the ogre is a 2-meter-tall demon monster with high strength and intelligence that works in a team of 10 against one girl, and her moves are not enough. He says that she can't escape anymore, and the man is surprised by the appearance of ogres on the middle level, explaining that they should be deeper, and asks if something abnormal is happening here. Makoto Tanaka says that the situation is abnormal, explains that these monsters shouldn't be on this floor, and explains that this is something that doesn't usually happen in dungeons at certain levels. He screams as he attacks with his sword, and she screams back as a demon with sharp fangs approaches. He delivers a powerful blow. She barely parries it, then screams that it's the devil, and looks in horror at the approaching demon. She says she can't believe this is happening and explains that it's impossible. He steps on the stones, breaking them, and then takes his foot away, leaving the ground clean. Makoto Tanaka lands hard, shattering the ground, then delivers a powerful punch, and the monster is surprised and responds with a powerful punch. The monster screams as he runs towards him, preparing to attack. Makoto Tanaka explains that it is an ogre's horn, and he holds the girl in his arms as they look at the destruction around them. A defeated monster leaves behind materials, and the remaining parts dissolve into magical essence. Makoto Tanaka explains that the dropped materials can vary depending on the direction of the blow, and that previously it was possible to obtain the most valuable materials, but now he wonders if it is possible to hold the girl like that. He explains that he thinks she will forgive, given the situation, asks if she is safe and can stand, and she is surprised and replies that she can. Hoshinome explains that although she is very tired and has received little damage, she can walk on her own, is surprised to meet Makoto Tanaka and says that she usually goes down into the dungeons alone, and Makoto Tanaka asks her name. She says thank God and thought the ogres had broken her. Makoto Tanaka says he didn't expect a random girl to know him and call him by his first name. She says that the power of the internet is amazing and asks if it can be fixed, and he says that he saw Yui with her channel and asks to subscribe to her, explaining that her stream suddenly stopped and is being discussed on social networks. The dungeon administration is not going to take action, and he calls. Makoto Tanaka explains that the administration will not rescue those trapped, and that all responsibility lies with the adventurers, and he says that there will be no help from the guild either. He asks how she ended up in this situation, and she explains that she was streaming and suddenly an ogre appeared. She explains that she tried to escape because she couldn't defeat the ogre, thought it was the end, and ended up being cornered. And Makoto Tanaka says he understands how scary it is. He says that for the first time he felt horror and despair. She says that he did well, and he explains that now she can rest and then it's his turn. Makoto Tanaka explains that they can't leave, and she is surprised that he says they have to fight. The ogres tell him that an ordinary girl can't handle them. He explains that even monsters from the deep floors are not opponents for him, and takes up arms. Makoto Tanaka asks the demon if he's going to run away. He screams and rushes with a weapon at 3 demons. Makoto Tanaka says the streamer is amazing and is ordered to chop the ogres into pieces, but he yells that the ogres are scary and can die. He says that he will not allow anyone to interfere with his plans and explains that he is ready to fight to the end for his goal. A massive demon with a club raises its weapon, preparing to strike the ground, causing destruction and an explosion of rocks around it. Makoto Tanaka yells that he is and then stabs the demon with his spear, who is surprised. He screams and he goes forward holding a sword between 2 huge monsters with open mouths. Makoto Tanaka explains that they are slow while the demon delivers a powerful blow with his club. He spins in the air, dodging a blow from a giant hand. Makoto Tanaka frowns as 2 demons fight, smashing the floor with huge clubs. He grips the hilt of his sword tightly and rushes into battle with 2 monsters. Makoto Tanaka jumps with his sword at a huge skeleton and delivers a powerful blow to it. He raises his weapon and confidently walks forward, surrounded by demons that react to his actions. Several creatures simultaneously scream and strike the ground with their clubs, causing destruction. Makoto Tanaka explains that he didn't believe the live broadcast at first and suspects he doesn't need a guild, while others comment on him as a rising star and discuss how Yui looks at him, acknowledging his attractiveness. He is surprised, and the demon with the club laughs and prepares to attack. The monster says that the enemy has the spirit of a true warrior. He saw his strength and is afraid, but does not run away, and Makoto Tanaka explains that they will fight with full force and prepares for battle. He explains that now it's just a matter of pulling the trigger on the infected pistol to end the battle, and acknowledges the enemy's strength as he prepares for a flash attack. He is surprised at how quickly the enemy moves and explains that he didn't even realize he was dead. Makoto Tanaka says he was just unlucky with his opponent. He says it's the fastest technique he knows and is amazed. Makoto Tanaka explains that the opponent was unlucky and says that he hit like grass, and then asks if he has any other moves, after which he asks if the interlocutor is okay. He says that her name is Hoshino Yui and that she might be scared, and also explains that she seems to be stunned and is a little blushing. Makoto Tanaka explains that they can't stay here because of the danger of monsters and suggests moving on, and she is surprised that she bit her tongue and is fine, although she hopes that she will be able to walk. He explains something and she agrees with it. Makoto Tanaka explains that polygamy is allowed in Japan because of the dungeons, and the robber warns Tanaka to be gentle with the girl, but she notices the big age difference and offers to take the sword. He explains that she is, of course, grateful to him now, but this is far from the feeling of love. Makoto Tanaka explains that after leaving here they will not see each other again, suggests taking a short break and temporarily stopping the stream to treat the wounds, and she agrees. He explains that he turned off the stream to have a normal conversation, asks to sit down, and Hoshino thanks him for his help and agrees to tell him where it hurts. She says she would have been dead if they hadn't come and thanks them for their kindness. And Makoto Tanaka explains that it's natural to help your colleagues. She says there's no need to refuse and explains that her mother taught her to pay double for help, and he says that she's too bright for a gloomy man like him. Makoto Tanaka reveals that he was once the same, but now his mind and heart are pitch black. He says that hard work changes a person and hopes that she will never find herself in such a situation, and she explains that he is older and more senior in this business than she is, and this makes her uncomfortable. Makoto Tanaka explains that they don't need any formalities since they'll be escaping the dungeon, and he says he'll do his best. He thanks her and asks if Hoshino is in pain anywhere. She explains that her leg hurts the most after the ogre attack. He notices a swelling and promises to treat it now. Makoto Tanaka explains that the cork fell while he was holding the bottle. He explains that potions can be made from scrap materials in the dungeon and everything is fine with him, and she apologizes for not knowing that it was such a valuable thing. She says that potions can be bought for money, but it is expensive, some guilds give them out, and he explains that the guild he was in did not give out potions, so he prepared them himself. Makoto Tanaka explains that there were no problems finding materials because he spent a lot of time there, and explains that bringing materials is prohibited, but using them in the dungeon is allowed, after which he says that they are finished. She is surprised that the wound healed so quickly. Makoto Tanaka tells her to try moving around. She agrees and is surprised that it doesn't hurt at all, and he explains that he's very happy about it. She laughs and he says it's good that the stream was turned off. Makoto Tanaka asks how she ended up alone in this place, and she explains that it's very dangerous to go to the middle levels alone. He explains that the danger level between the upper and middle levels is different, and although there shouldn't be ogres here, there are other monsters that would corner you, so it's still very dangerous here. Makoto Tanaka explains that it is possible to fight the local monsters face to face, but according to their rules it will be difficult, and the girl apologizes and admits that it is almost impossible for one fragile girl to fight here. He says that if he dies, it won't be meaningful and asks why he cares about the number of viewers, and she explains that she was attacked by ogres. She explains that she comes from a single-parent, poor family and needs to earn more money so that her younger brothers can study, and that she is still too young to gain popularity. Makoto Tanaka explains that while he was studying at university, he couldn't earn money in the dungeon and had almost no free time, and he believes that she had her own reasons. He suggests joining a guild for a stable salary, and she explains that without a higher education it is impossible to get into a good guild, and with a secondary education the salary is too low. He says that the shortcomings of society are evident even here, and she explains that if you get a job at dubious companies, you won't get into good ones later, and says that at least being a streamer allows you to work at a convenient time. Makoto Tanaka explains that he didn't understand the whole situation and asks for forgiveness, but she says there's no need to apologize. He says he didn't think anyone would save him at all, and she explains that she's very happy and surprised that he looked so confident. She was impressed by the way Makoto Tanaka stood there like a father figure she could rely on, while he laughed and said he looked too old, apologizing for what he said. He says he was joking, and she explains that he looks a bit like his older brother and is surprised that he doesn't look old at all. She says thank God, and he explains that their situations are very similar. He explains that his parents were hospitalized due to magic poisoning, and he had to take a dubious job at a school to pay for their treatment, and he explains that he was saved by simple luck, otherwise he would have ended badly as a slave to the company. He explains that if a fragile girl were to get into the same trouble, he would want to help her. He says it's terrible, but promises he can't replace his father, and she's surprised. Makoto Tanaka says he will protect his interlocutor until he gets him out of here and assures him that he will not be harmed. She thanks him, stuttering, and he is surprised and explains that her face turned red like a tomato. Makoto Tanaka says it's time to resume the broadcast and needs to explain the current situation to them. He's surprised that he's found a partner, and in the comments, viewers are telling him that he saved a lonely girl, wishing them happiness and giving them a wedding gift, and he's worried that he didn't turn off the broadcast. Makoto Tanaka yells that he's turning off the broadcast, while the voiceover explains that he pressed the wrong button and jokes about 18+ ASMR from a former office worker. He explains that it seems like everyone heard and apologizes to Hoshino, expressing regret. She explains that she didn't hide it and thought it would be worse for him, and Makoto Tanaka says that he doesn't care what people think of him and wonders why she thought that. She says that she was completely sincere in what she said, and he explains that it's strange because she's frozen again, and she's screaming, "Oh my!" Makoto Tanaka says Amatsuki had a similar reaction. He says that at the next meeting it might be worth asking why she behaved that way. Makoto Tanaka explains that a dangerous monster is following him and explains the need to be careful in the cave. She thanks Tanaka for his help, and he explains that he didn't do anything special and starts the stream. Makoto Tanaka explains his apology for the sudden interruption of the stream and explains that they are trying to escape from a dungeon, then expresses surprise at the vulgar comments from viewers and asks what to do next. He explains that they will have to walk, although it will take a long time, and asks if she can run, to which she says that she is perfectly fine. Makoto Tanaka explains that a warrior relies on strength and is therefore slower, and he says that they need to take their time so that she doesn't fall behind, and agrees to go. The lizard screams and is surprised when it notices something in the cave. Makoto Tanaka and her run quickly through the cave, overcoming obstacles. He asks if she can keep up with him at that speed, and she replies that she can. Makoto Tanaka asks Hoshino if she has worked in groups and explains that even without a guild, you can form a group for safety, and Hoshino says that she has often been invited to collaborate, but it is mostly guys with scary eyes who invite her. He says it's clear and is surprised that his eyes aren't scary. Makoto Tanaka explains that given the number of her fans, there are some nasty people with ill intentions who might want to take her over, and he is surprised that she hasn't been in danger all this time, and asks if he is her first partner. She confirms that everything is so, and he asks for forgiveness and says that she has such a first friend. She screams that it's nothing like that and explains that he's her first, and the two running men continue moving. She is surprised that this is her first, explains that she is too naive and needs to be protected, talks about her dream of hearing that she is someone's first, and asks to get out alive. Makoto Tanaka sighs and says that such a cute girl would never fall in love with him, and then explains that it's okay and he made the audience laugh, while she apologizes and explains that she didn't mean to say that. He says that he hears people and he and the girl are surprised and scream, noticing something in the cave. Makoto Tanaka explains that he can't hear anything, and she says that she can't hear anything either. He explains that they have to come here, and he turned up the volume on the PC but didn't hear anything and says that their office plankton has very poor hearing. Makoto Tanaka says he heard people's voices and sounds of fighting, explains that several groups came in the morning, and if the searchers encountered monsters, they need to help, but he can't just abandon Hoshino. He says he doesn't know what to do. She says she won't be able to go home if they leave someone behind, and Makoto Tanaka explains that they're going. He says that everything will be fine with him and he won't get underfoot, but the girl asks about it persistently. He explains that he can't believe what's happening, and Makoto Tanaka says that he's surprised too. He explains that he can't refuse when he's asked and warns her to run if it's dangerous, and she says that she understands and suggests they go. Makoto Tanaka tells her to follow him, and she confirms this, after which they jump off the cliff together. He says to get ready ahead, and she confirms that she understands. Makoto Tanaka says this is the second time today, and he and the others are preparing to attack the hostile creatures that have appeared near the black hole. He says it's time to work and jumps in with a gun in his hands. Makoto Tanaka screams and attacks enemies, who are surprised and scream. He explains that problematic monsters have reappeared, robed labyrinth mages who use staffs and magic, although they are not usually found on these floors. He explains that for a swordsman, a mage is a natural enemy, and it is difficult for a swordsman to counter an attacker from a long distance and predict his actions. Makoto Tanaka explains that it is important for a swordsman to see the opponent's actions in order to predict them, but this is impossible against mages, as they use different magical attacks, and he cannot read their movements. He says that during his work he acquired many skills, including the ability to sense fluctuations in magical power. He explains that thanks to them he has an effective way to fight magicians. Makoto Tanaka screams as he attacks enemies, who react to his attack with surprise and fear. He says he can chop them down before they use magic. Several of the hooded men explain that they will not allow them to go further and threaten them with weapons. Makoto Tanaka explains that labyrinth mages have no body. They are just mist, and if you know their weakness, they will not be an opponent. He explains that for him, mages are easier opponents, any of them will die from high damage, and he thought that the labyrinth mage was a problematic monster, but if you cut the mage faster than he casts magic, then they will not be problematic monsters. Makoto Tanaka talks about how he couldn't do anything at one point and the group had to run away. He gets excited by the office suit, and also notes that half the audience has changed their orientation. He explains that the other labyrinth mages were killed, so they became wary, and says that sooner or later they will come anyway. Makoto Tanaka says he came to help and asks to tell what happened, and the man thanks him and is surprised. The crowd is surprised that he is an office plankton. He explains that everyone already recognizes him, and the man apologizes for the excitement and begins to explain the situation. Makoto Tanaka says it's clear. It is said that initially all 5 were from 2 different groups of researchers, but they were forced to join forces. They encountered unusual opponents and tried to escape, but the labyrinth mages surrounded them and they could not escape. Makoto Tanaka explains that he will lead the way and asks to retreat, and the other man says that they were surrounded by magicians and they almost stayed home, and he understood everything but is surprised. He says not to worry, but the man is surprised. Makoto Tanaka explains that he can't stand labyrinth mages and has learned to fight them, and the others are surprised where he got the case from. He explains that it is a special suit in which he can store a lot of things in the pockets. He is surprised that items with pocket space are not uncommon. The man explains that they are worth a fortune. Makoto Tanaka explains that such items can only be obtained deep in the dungeons, and he explains that he was most likely there alone. He explains that inside the dungeon you can get items with unique effects, and says that he has a couple of such special items, and the other man says that he didn't tell the judge about this, otherwise he would have taken them. He screams and releases a powerful stream of fire from his hands. He releases a powerful fiery blast. People scream in horror, and his step destroys the ground under their feet. Makoto Tanaka delivers a powerful punch that causes an explosion and destruction around him, and looks forward with determination, clutching the weapon in his hand. He screams and throws a fireball, and the hooded creature is surprised and screams back, engulfed in flames. Makoto Tanaka says everything is fine while holding a briefcase, and the 3 onlookers are surprised. He says that the labyrinth wizards lost to the office clerk, wonders why the briefcase was not damaged by the high temperature, and notes that he will take note of this. Makoto Tanaka yells that he's attacking, breaks an ice projectile, then jumps and says hoba while performing an acrobatic stunt with a suitcase. 3 creatures scream, making sounds that express aggression and tension. Makoto Tanaka says they are pushing further and he confirms it. Aegis business briefcase at the target, and those around him are amazed at its strength and the force of its impact. Makoto Tanaka explains that he has cleared the way and will hold off the enemies so that the rest can go to the exit, and the man thanks him and promises not to forget his kindness. He explains that the higher you go, the weaker the monsters are due to the lower concentration of magical power, and now you need to prevent the rest of the magicians from catching up with the guys. Makoto Tanaka screams as he and she step back in horror. He holds a staff with a bone handle and displays a sinister smile. Makoto Tanaka says that the black-robed mage is a monster that shouldn't appear on the middle floors, and even a swordsman can't handle him, and the woman screams. He shouts that the enemy uses magic much faster than the labyrinth mages, and he won't have time. Makoto Tanaka shouts that he allows it, and the skull creature is surprised and steps on the ground. He says that he didn't think she had enough strength to defeat the monster from the deep floor, and asks not to offend him, since he has already done a lot, and all around there are calls to study and not allow deaths on the stream. Makoto Tanaka shouts from the road and she is surprised. Then he calls Hoshino, who is preparing to attack and is surrounded by mystical symbols, and the other girl is amazed at what is happening. He says he got there and then explains that the mage in black can teleport enemies deeper into the dungeon using spatial magic. She says that she will soon find herself on the deep floors and will hardly be able to return alive. Makoto Tanaka screams and falls to the ground, then explains that he is in pain. He screams in surprise and then quickly rushes into the attack, explaining that if he gets close, the enemy will simply run away and won't be able to reach him with a normal attack. He screams and makes noises, and the text explains that he will watch his spell work from a safe distance. Makoto Tanaka explains that he thought the other person wouldn't be able to escape from him and grips the handle of his weapon. He says that he struck with a speed that exceeded all possible limits and explains that his attack created a shock wave that traveled further. Makoto Tanaka says that from that day on he tried again and again, but at some point he stopped seeing his sword and hearing the sound of the wind cutting through it. He explains that his own style of fencing allows the sword to cut even space and demonstrates a spatial cut. Makoto Tanaka screams and strikes, and the creature lets out a scream. He says he continues to stream from a rock dungeon in Nishishinjuku and is currently somewhere in its depths. Makoto Tanaka explains that there is a high concentration of magical power here, which could cause Hoshino to be poisoned, and he says that he is glad to see them alive and is surprised that Tanaka calmly started the stream. She says that anyone can face this, and he explains that even a break will not improve his health, and talks about his sad past and the impossibility of being cured with regular medicine. Makoto Tanaka explains that he will prepare several dishes, first boiling a large pot of water, and explains that this food helped him fight magic poisoning. He explains that the magical power in the heat does not require fuel due to the magical power in the air, and explains that the flame does not take up oxygen, so it can be used in a confined space, making the item ideal for cooking in a dungeon. Makoto Tanaka says there's no need to force yourself, and she explains that she also wants to help and can handle it if it's not too difficult. He asks to cut it into pieces, and she agrees. She screams what kind of mushroom it is, and he explains that it is a plum mushroom and is surprised that she has never seen one, commenting on how much it scared her. Makoto Tanaka explains that the mushroom is good at separating magical power into its components and alleviating the symptoms of magical poisoning when used correctly, and she is surprised that such information is available to most people. He explains that today he didn't have money or time for normal food, so he tried a lot of things in the dungeons, and when he ate the mushroom, he felt that the poisoning began to pass. Makoto Tanaka says that the vegetables don't look very good, but they taste good, and he explains that many vegetables help absorb magical power and advises eating them. The girl agrees to cut the vegetables. She laughs and thanks him, and he says he's never seen such scary hot pot ingredients and that this is a new level of hot pot hell. Makoto Tanaka explains that he used to eat local food a lot and that it increased his tolerance to magical power, and he asks her to throw it inside when she explains that she cut herself. He says that he will even add meat, and she is surprised that there is meat. Makoto Tanaka explains that the meat of the underground boar is a local monster with a lot of meat, and if cooked correctly, it will become a real delicacy that other people have never tried. She cries and asks for help, and he explains that it is better not to eat the glowing thing, since it has a lot of magical power. Makoto Tanaka explains that if you've already developed immunity, there's nothing to worry about and you can crunch, and he says that it seems like everything is ready. He explains that he adds salt from the dungeon and tells that a special soup to combat magical power is ready, listing the ingredients. Makoto Tanaka says he's offering to give it a try, and she agrees with some trepidation. She tries the food, swallows it with difficulty, and says that she actually ate it, and he comments on her bravery. She says it's delicious. He explains that he's glad to hear it, and she's surprised and says that if Yui says so, then it's definitely delicious. She says she feels warm and better, and Makoto Tanaka explains that it was the first time he cooked for someone else and asks her to eat at least one portion, to which he agrees. The woman thanks her for the food. He asks how she's feeling and explains that he's feeling much better. Makoto Tanaka says that her complexion has returned to normal and that he will clean everything up now, offering to rest, and she thanks him and agrees. He explains that he will finish quickly and asks her to stay put. He explains that magical power is very important for awakened beings, and says that he was worried that the soup might harm her due to the decrease in magical power, but she feels fine. Makoto Tanaka explains that she has more magical power and high tolerance, and if she trains, she will become a great researcher, and asks Hoshino who she learned to fight from. She explains that she didn't study with anyone and even went underground with other investigators only a couple of times. Makoto Tanaka asks why she stopped working with the group, and she explains that the relationships in the group became tense. One girl said that with his arrival everything turned upside down and they got angry at her, so she left. He says that she didn't even fully understand what happened and explains that any guy would like such a sweet girl, but the girls didn't like her, so it's good that she left them. Makoto Tanaka explains that the chat understood everything. He thinks Hoshino is kind and caring, but is surprised that she couldn't fall in love with him with an empty look, and admits that he is already a bit old. He says that he is an adult now and must warn her so that she does not get hurt again, and she asks him to listen. Makoto Tanaka explains that men easily fall in love when they are shown kindness, especially if it is done by a sweet girl like Hoshino, and it instantly reaches the heart. She screams that it's cute. Makoto Tanaka tells Hoshino that he should find a cuter girl, and she is surprised and asks if he thinks she is cute, after which he explains that it is obvious. He says that he has always loved Hoshino. She sighs, and he is surprised and asks if she is okay, while noticing that the office plankton has too much damage and low self-esteem, but he is not shy about praising others. She says that everything is fine. She is surprised that they only met today and will start dating at this rate, and Makoto Tanaka explains that the viewers in the chat were alarmed, but he considers it meaningless jokes, and she explains that then maybe Tanaka. She is surprised, asking if they will fall in love with her, and he explains that he cannot answer that easily. She cries and says that she is her fan and gives her blessing, but he thinks that Tanaka will not understand a direct confession and is afraid that he will refuse. Makoto Tanaka laughs at Hoshino's words and explains that another person might have misunderstood the situation, and she apologizes and curses him for being insensitive. He tells him to be careful, but he's surprised that his heart was almost stolen. He says it's time to fix it and explains that Hoshino said that no one taught her how to fight, and she's surprised that Hoshino even scares him. Makoto Tanaka explains that she has a talent that needs to be used and that her skills require training, and she is surprised that she has a talent. She explains that he should try to hit her with a sword first, and he is surprised that he can't attack her. She says she trusts them and everything is fine, and he explains that he doesn't think anything terrible will happen or that she will strike, and she agrees. She screams that she is attacking. Makoto Tanaka turns sharply, and she is surprised and prepares for a fight. He explains that Hoshino has power, but he can't control it yet, and says that he needs to make his body's core stronger, and Hoshino is surprised and asks about the core. Makoto Tanaka explains that the body should be an extension of the sword, and she says that you need to be like Shu and make a whoosh sound when you attack, after which he says that this is advice for the beginning, and is surprised that nothing is clear. He explains that he used to work as an instructor for the awakened and that the stance has become much better, and she confirms that this is exactly how it is. Makoto Tanaka says it was hard to explain things when no one understood, but Hoshino somehow understands him without words, and he is surprised by this. He asks if he has become a better teacher. Makoto Tanaka says that's great and suggests that she now try kicking and shouldering, and she's happy that the kicks have become stronger. He explains that the sword is the whole body, not just the arm, and tells how the power flows through the spine, and also explains how to swing the sword using the legs. She explains the meaning of done, and screams while attacking, while Makoto Tanaka and the girl are surprised as they watch the wall collapse. He explains that the sword can be used as a shield and to redirect blows, and Hoshino is surprised that it actually worked and agrees with him. She explains that it is understandable to use a shield as a sword and says that she had not thought about it. Makoto Tanaka explains that they have to move on now or he will despair in the cramped space, and another man calls him by name. She asks to continue to tell her different things and expresses great gratitude for this. Makoto Tanaka says he doesn't mind giving a couple more lessons if that's okay with him, and she's happy and thanks him. He says that she is serious about becoming stronger, and he thinks that Yuichika is too sweet and still doesn't understand anything, explaining that he apparently gave up his feelings in exchange for his skills. Makoto Tanaka explains that he doesn't know where to go yet, but suggests going in this direction and warns her about local monsters, and she agrees.